Hello and welcome to today's review of the Transformers Takara Legends Grotusque. Now, given when we left off with the last review, I figured we'd just review Grotusque next. And to gather a small amount of the contextual information regarding this guy's release, he was in a 7000 Gen 2 pack that's approximately £50 converted back in 2019, and he was a Takara Tomy Mall exclusive. Now, as if he wasn't hard enough to get hold of, the Hasbro version was also an exclusive, though it was to Hasbro's Toy Shop, and shortly after Toys R Us. Hasbro Toy Shop is pre-Hasbro Pulse, bearing in mind. And I could only find information for the US release, so too bad for us UK folk. And for a general overview, he has a cool colour scheme with paint detailing throughout. It's on the shoulders here, the shins, the crotch plate. It's all cast in grain and painted over in purple. It just feels like extra steps, but hey, there you go. But yeah, you know, it's definitely cool, and it does really, the whole mode cleans up beautifully. Like, I'm generally all for it. So, he's a very cool guy. Let's just move on to Articulation. And hold up, because I've completely forgot about the head here, so I'm just going to go over that now. And, you know, he's beautifully painted, you know, no complaints there. Arms are white, you know, legs are white, they're cast, and then they're painted blue, painted little saber-tooth head or whatever on him, and yeah, it's cool stuff, I guess. You know, I'm definitely not against any of it. It's as clean cut as you get for a Japanese headmaster, you know, it's generally really cool stuff, and knee bends like that. Legs open up, he goes in the bottom of the chest, and I did record this a little bit late, so back to where we were. Look, another cutaway. Now, I'm just going to cut to this and go over a couple things I should have talked about originally. Now, there's some extra paint on the bottom of the feet. You know, that's there. This is for the Beast Mode thighs. The wings have tamper-graphed Autobot insignias on them. The tamper-graphing also extends to this right shoulder here. There you go, beautiful stuff. I mean, perhaps that is paint. But anyway, regardless, they look lovely. Then we've got some blue paint on the Beast Mode eyes right here. Got to zoom out a little bit, there you go. Beast Mode neck has these kind of neck orb things painted blue as well. There you go. Lovely stuff. And it just makes the neck a little bit nicer to look at. And somehow I forgot to mention that the face is painted from top to bottom. From the chalk white hair, the light blue kind of forehead gem bit, the blue eyes, the grey face, it's all painted and it looks bloody lovely. And not to mention that the weapons from this guy, I'm going to cover this somewhere else in the review. I'm just going to mention that they tab together. But here, I'm actually going to show you something useful they do when they're tapped together. So, let's just pop off his head. Stretch out the headmaster arms. And voila. It kind of houses the bot, you know. So, if you plug this onto the back of the Beast Mode, you could have them kind of sit on the outside. I don't know, maybe man the turret a little bit. It does sit really securely in there, so you give him a shake and he won't fall out. Brilliant stuff. You know, it's brilliant. Same for Repugnus. I'm going to just retroactively throw this in here as well. These also tab together. There you go. And then we take Repugnus's headmaster. Whoa, we popped his arm off. Right. Alright, mate. Here you go. Get in here. Gonna plug the feet in nicely, and yeah, if you can actually kind of get past the hurdle of actually plugging the feet in, it's a skill issue, I promise, it's not difficult. There you go, that just kind of sits in there. I don't see what the point of this gimmick really is, especially for the swords, but it's a thing it does. And now that's out of the way, we can return to our scheduled programming. So, onto the articulation for Grotusque. It's fairly straightforward, you know. You're going to get the shoulders going round at a whole 360. There you go. Arms are going to go out super duper high, partly for the transformation. Elbows are going to pull a 90, like so. Got the good old hidden bicep swivel, just like Repugnus. You got wrist hinges for the transformation. There you go. And then the head's going to swivel all the way around because it's a headmaster. Then you've got a little bit of movement left, right, up and down. Beautiful stuff. And then, much like Repugnus, there's no waist. Now, I do think for the same reason it's because of the whole opening cockpit on the chest. You know, I'm not too bothered by it. Legs kick up at 90. There you go. Legs are going to kick back at 90. Nice and straight. Thigh swivel, pretty tight on my copy, not as tight as Repugnus's. And then the legs are going to do the full splits at 90 for a full Van Damme or whatever you want to call it. The full Monty, beautiful spread, whatever. You know, and onto the knees, really deep bend, same as Repugnus, you know, it's all the same engineering. Feet hinge down, swivel all the way around. Generally, very solid stuff. You know, the articulation on this is definitely decent, and we're just going to move on to our bot mode comparison. So, for the bro bot mode size comparison, here we have Repugnus, Double Cross, Ralph, Steve. Generally, really solid stuff. No other comments. Let's move straight on to our transformation. So, for the alt mode on Grotusque, you know, the monster mode is very unique, not in a bad way, but there's some really cool transformation steps with how the arms double as beast arms and the lower jaw hinging from the chest up to the upper part of the head. You know, it's pretty awesome. The tail halves connecting on the back end, that's quite cool too, you know. And the legs folding over the legs is quite neat, right? You know, it's not entirely unique as Dinobot figures do similar things with the tail and whatnot, but it's generally cool, you know. And as for the beast mode articulation, the mouth opens and closes, the arms function as normal. The only difference being the claws, instead of hinging inwards and outwards like the fists, they hinge up and downwards. And yeah, it's alright stuff, you know. They don't look as good, but it's perfectly fine and there's good range. And as for the legs, you know, we're going to get to those. You're going to kick upwards, you go kick backwards quite far. You've got a knee bend that's really deep. There you go, nice swinging. And then legs split outwards. And then the toe bends, you know, it's perfectly fine. I'm generally really happy with the alt mode. So just before I forget, we can actually plug the guns onto the back of the beast mode. So we'll just go cover that now. There's two little ports where they plug in. Put them on together or by themselves, it doesn't really matter. You know, it's a generally good weapon storage in my opinion because it blends in quite well. And from here, we'll just move straight into our size comparison. So, for the alt mode size comparison, here we have Repugnus, Double Cross, Ralph, Steve. Now, same solid stuff as Repugnus before him, and much like any non-vehicular alt mode, I'm not really too worried about scale, you know. All the monsters look good together. They look okay with the little minifigures there, you know. Same with the bot modes, and it's generally cool stuff, you know. I've got no complaints with it, and even if they're all goofy, they're all really cool. So let's just move on to my final thoughts. So, for my final thoughts on Grotusque, he's very good, you know, for many of the same reasons as Repugnus. They're both cut from the same cloth with all the shared engineering and whatever. And I like the bot mode more than Repugnus, but the alt mode, you know, it's not as favourable to me, though I definitely really enjoy it still. It's a bit goofy, though. But for the rankings, you know, aesthetics, definite 8, you know, solid as hell in both modes, I really enjoy it. Articulation on this guy is a 7 out of 10, and I'm retroactively changing Repugnus to a 7 out of 10 in this category too, due to the articulation being good for both modes, given a Titan's Return figure, and the fact that the beast modes are actually articulate to some degree with legs and arms and whatever. You know, and it's definitely a engineering feat for the Titan's Return era, given how bricky many beast modes tend to be, you know, from any time period in Transformers, even modern, you know, these are quite good. Transformation on this guy is also an 8.5. It's smart and simple, you know, same beats as Repugnus, but because of how the tail functions, the arms work, and the jaw head transformation, you know, all of that stuff is making it an 8.5 instead of an 8 like Repugnus. And finally, value for money on this guy is a 7 out of 10. You know, it's all the same stuff as Repugnus because they were packed together and they're very similar. Overall, it's a 7.5 out of 10. Bias would put it up to an 8. Not as good as Repugnus, but almost. This has been AnimatedCHUG. Thank you for watching, and goodbye.